Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I am so excited to have this live show with all of you today, as is the tradition here with our live shows. I'm going to report to you a whole bunch of coronavirus, COVID-related news information. There's a really big article that came out in Nature yesterday that I think will be interesting for a lot of you. And there's also over 20 states that are on the decline, despite what you are not hearing around the country and potentially in your own neighborhood. So I want to share with you a whole bunch of news specific to the virus and to help you determine how to keep you and your families healthy and safe as we reopen and get a little bit more back to some sort of normalcy. Also, most importantly, I want to share with you an herb. I know a lot of you have asked about this particular herb that is wonderful for your immune system. It's wonderful for any of you who might be dealing with cancer. It protects the heart. There are a lot of things that this herb does, and we're going to dig into how it's beneficial, who can use it safely, and who should avoid this herb. So we'll dig into that as well. Welcome all of you. Good morning, Monica out in California, and Kay Jefferson Powell. Welcome. Please let me know down below where you're tuning in from. I also have 10 specific states I want to report on this morning that are predicted and projected to increase in the next month. So this will be important. And also give me a like. Please help me with the YouTube and Instagram algorithms. Instagram has not, apparently a lot of my followers have not liked some of my posts recently, and I've had like a drop of about 100 people. And then YouTube, we've lost some of our more loyal fans for some of my communication here about what's going on socially. So, you know, we're in a time where a lot of people are divided, and my heart is in the place where I want to equip each and every one of you with information that will keep you healthy and safe. And also I have an onus to my communities, particularly of color, who are disproportionately affected by this virus. And I'm going to report those numbers. I'm going to report information that hopefully will help them be healthier and safer during this pandemic. And also when we're protesting to be healthy and safe. So I just want to reiterate that is my mission here. So let's dig into the world. This is big. The world has surpassed 7 million cases. The US has surpassed 2 million cases. The US is also at 111, almost 113,000 deaths from this. There are new projections that we should expect to see by August. I think it's 4th or 5th of August. So early August, we are expecting to see our cases, the cases of fatalities rise to 145,000 based on the progression, based on 22 plus states that are on the increase. Also based on 28 states who are not following federal guidelines for reopening. They're just plowing through like, la, la, la. These numbers, there are some states I've reported on that are botching, misreporting, trying to tweak and recalibrate some of the numbers so that they can push through the guideline and reopen. But 28 are just blindly trudging forward against federal regulations from the CDC or guidelines. We don't have regulations on this, but there are definitely guidelines or local state regulations. So I want to highlight 3 states that have some news. California is at 131,000 cases, and they are showing that there's a lot of stuff going on in California. So California is on the incline again. They plan this Friday to open movie theaters. So life is starting to get back to some normalcy. I'm curious for Monica, who's on here, I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of what you're seeing locally. Are you seeing people starting to kind of be a little bit more socially open? The OC health officer, so OC Orange County, you know, lots of publicity there with like the Real Housewives of Orange County. I'm one of those Bravo. I'm a total Bravo fan. I used to Jones out on that before I had Gabriel, but now there's no time. But the OC health officer actually resigned this week because of threats. She had death threats. People were showing up at her home protesting her guidance of requiring face mask wearing. And it was so great and took such a big toll, she resigned. There's a huge population that is against face masks, and we have evidence and clinical research that's showing there is a benefit. Now, Texas, I see folks on here from Texas. Texas is almost at 80,000. You guys are going to hit 80,000 cases probably before lunchtime today. So you're at 79,978. There is a yoga studio, apparently, that a cluster. There's a report that there are multiple people who did yoga at a yoga studio. I don't know where. I don't know the details. But all I know is that multiple cases tested positive, contact traced to the yoga studio. They are on the increase in the two major counties. So Dallas and Houston, those areas are on the increase. There's one particular county called Travis County. They're increasing. And across the state, Texas has seen the most number of hospitalizations in the last week over week. So they're on a peak. And yet they are not locking down. They're not taking any measures to be safe. UT Austin is undergoing or kicking off a study that will analyze 50 random cases, 50 random individuals, so that they can study asymptomatic cases. There's also some information out of the World Health Organization that I'll report on a little bit about asymptomatic cases. But that's really going to be critical for us to kind of analyze how it's impacted, at least in one particular state. Florida, you guys know that's where I grew up and started my first business there. Florida is almost at 65,000 cases. So they're at almost 65,000. They're 6 away. And they, Wednesday, tomorrow, Miami-Dade beaches are opening. And so we're going to see those opening up, and who knows what's going to happen there. But yesterday was the first day that they did not have over 1,000 new cases. The reports are they're testing more. I don't know why somebody keeps calling me. So they are reporting more cases and had been reporting over 1,000 cases. Monday was at 966, just a subtle decrease, but they still, for over a week, were reporting 1,000 plus cases. So in 1 week, they almost had 8,000 cases. So that is something that is critical to report. The other thing that I want to report, we're monitoring Minnesota and DC based on some of the protesting. Minnesota, they're at 28,183. That's a subtle increase from yesterday of about 700 cases. And this is something that we're going to monitor as well. And DC is at 9,389 cases. So that's critical to report as well. We're just going to keep monitoring that. And 1 second, you guys, I am going to, let's see, Instagram. You guys are still on. Okay. I don't know why somebody keeps trying to call me. Okay. So, I don't know how to block those people. I get so many random calls. It's not even funny. And they'll just keep calling. Lots of robocalls lately. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, you guys. All right. Now, some additional news that I want to highlight. Oh, bad connection. Yeah. Sunny M, I'm sorry. YouTube seems to be okay. All right. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can fix this Instagram. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. I am blocking the call that keeps coming through. Okay. All right. Instagram, you're back. Okay. Sorry. I honestly think it's somebody's trying to call through because I use my cell phone for Instagram. So sorry, you guys. Okay. Let's get back to some news. 22 states are on the increase. Most notable, Michigan and Arizona have the greatest increase in cases in the last week. 3 states, and this is why I asked all of you to tell me where you guys are coming from. 3 states have seen great decreases. Virginia, Rhode Island, and Nebraska. Yay! So that's good. Now, Virginia is going to be one of these ones we're going to monitor because they border DC. There could be people who are driving in and actively protesting, which is totally their right. We just want to make sure everybody's being safe, covering their faces and their masks and being socially distant. So that's where we're at in terms of the high cases, the highest of the cases and the lowest of the cases. Now, 10 states that demonstrate some degree of increase. And some of these are pretty substantial. Some are like 20%, 30%, 60, 75%. So I'm going to go down the list. Utah is one of the states that's seeing an increase. California, the Carolinas, North Carolina particularly, the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, broke records in North Carolina. So they had the highest amount of cases in North Carolina. Arkansas, 2 counties, Washington and Benton County, were most notably the increased, most notably saw the increase. I know Benton County, I think, is where Walmart is located, the headquarters. Texas, across the board, we're seeing major increases there. I've reported that. Massachusetts, they're anticipating increases. They were on the decline. They've been kind of hovering at 102, 103 for about a week, but they're having more attendance with the protests, so they're monitoring that. Florida, we've seen increases. I've reported that this morning. New York also. New York was in kind of a stable decline. We are reopening. New York is seeing reopening, and also with that, the protesters. So that is one factor. South Carolina, in 2 weeks, they've seen a 60% increase. Now, I know I have friends and followers here in South Carolina, and I'm trying to see if we've got anybody specifically. So the South Carolina, across the board, 60% increase, 2 weeks. That's substantial. The other thing, too, is Tennessee has seen an increase of 75%. So that's really big. And I'm seeing some reports, Christine, I'd say more than half are still wearing masks in my Rio Grande Valley, Texas border town, but our numbers are very low. I saw, so Kay Jefferson, Travis County largely consists of Austin. Here in San Antonio, most people of all ages in my area appear to be wearing masks. Good. I live in Texas, Kathy Davis, and most people don't wear masks, just the older people. Tell us where, Kathy, do you live? It's so interesting, like the different pockets. And Nancy loves Bravo too. Yay. It totally is a guilty pleasure. And I was so heartbroken that Andy Cohen had coronavirus, but he's back to all good. Good morning from sunny New York. Hey, June. Okay, so those are those states that we want to monitor. If you live in those top 10, and if you're just catching us in the live with the replay, you can hit rewind, and you can also hit fast forward if you don't want to hear any of the news on the replay for any of you. And now Instagram, I don't know what happened. It may be because I hit 10,000 that I've gone back down in followers. But I can post long video on Instagram TV, which is huge. I used to be capped at 9 minutes, and now it's converting my live show, permanently housing it on IGTV. Woo, big win. So I can also post all the links in the IGTV. That then goes on my Instagram post. So that is exciting for all of you. When I say link down below, you'll actually be able to get that as soon as it posts, usually faster than YouTube. Okay, so let's dig into some additional news. One of the reports recently, yesterday, is that remdesivir is slowing the disease. There's a trial in monkeys. I can't remember the type of monkey, but these monkeys, you would recognize them. They're in a lot of zoos. These monkeys, in the new study, it's showing that they're seeing a decrease in lung disease, or the impact of the lung disease from COVID. Now, that doesn't mean they're totally free. And this is very early on. We have animal trials, and then it moves to human trials. This is something that we're going to see it be a longer term study. And it's just really hard to roll these things out as much as everybody wants there to be instant gratification, instant immediate relief with medication, pharmaceuticals. We just need time and study. And so that's the latest out from there. The CDC has they've released some preliminary info. It's supposed to be out today. It was not out this morning before our show. But there is an antibody study that the CDC did in conjunction with the soldiers on the USS Theodore Roosevelt. And the study there, they pull 400 of the soldiers, several thousand, over 1,000 tested positive when that all was happening. They pulled 400, a sample size of 400 soldiers that had tested positive. And they wanted to test how many of them have antibodies. 60% of the 400 had showcased development of antibodies. So that's telling when we're talking about herd immunity. If 60% of the population who has tested positive with it, 60% is developing antibodies. That's not necessarily the threshold we want to see for the herd immunity. And it's still short in terms of the time frame. This is now, a month and a half after some of these individuals. Some actually still might be undergoing some of the symptoms. Others might be on the recovery end, but still in the viral shed and whatnot. So I'm curious to see if this is going to be repeated in 6 months, and then maybe in 9 and 12, we'll get more info. But I wanted to put that out there. It is coming out today from the reports. Now, this is really interesting. Harvard posted a study about satellite surveillance in China. And they went back to the satellites. We've got satellites analyzing everything. And so, even if you aren't on Facebook and you trying to minimize your surveillance, the reality is that we have satellites that are watching everything. And what this report showcases is that the satellites covering Wuhan, particularly 5 Wuhan hospitals, and what they look at is the traffic pattern. So they look at how many, this is so insane. They look at how many cars are parked in the parking lot of the hospital and an increase in traffic. And they actually predict that the coronavirus was in abundant, it was spreading earlier, as early as August, just from this, what we call satellite tracking surveillance. So that's the term of this type of utilization of a satellite up in the air tracking what's going on Earth. And they showed that there was an increase in cars in the parking lots of 5 Wuhan hospitals as early as August. And they're projecting that may have been the early beginnings of the coronavirus, not necessarily seeing that connection as we saw late November, early December, that it was prevalent earlier. So that's interesting. I'm sure there's going to be more details and commentary coming out about that. But also, I want to highlight that the World Health Organization, cupcake paper, money for mommy camp. Thanks, $2.99. I appreciate that. I need lots of energy with mommy camp. Yesterday was a total mommy camp fail. I'll just side note, we tried to do a piñata, like paper mache piñata over a balloon, and it took all day to dry. So today we have a dried piñata, and we're making cupcakes for one of our friends who is undergoing, one of Brian's really good friends, who is on his 3rd or 4th chemotherapy treatment. So we're sending him healthy cupcakes today. So that's mommy camp plan. But thank you, Cupcake Paper. I'm always grateful for the super chats. They totally support us. So thank you. So the World Health Organization, this is really critical. They've come out, you're going to see the headlines. There's going to be a lot to do about this, but I want to dig further into it. There's their communication yesterday, or really early this morning for us, today, Tuesday. They said that contact tracing is showing that it's rare for asymptomatic transmission of the virus. So there's a lot that comes with that single statement. The question of what do we consider asymptomatic? Because there are a lot of folks that are carrying and asymptomatic, but they do have some degree of symptoms. And even now we know CT scans of asymptomatic patients, they're showing lung damage. So that is a symptom. That is a symptom. And that also, we might, if we were having them monitor their oxygen, their pulse ox, we might be seeing dips, and that would be a traditional symptom, but they might not be feeling it. So at any rate, there's several things. One, mild levels of COVID are symptomatic. So folks that have a mild case, usually secondary transmission is what they've communicated, are the milder cases less symptomatic. And then 2, people can be pre-symptomatic and that might be categorized as asymptomatic. So it's a big kind of communication about how do we identify asymptomatic. And so there's going to be more that comes from this, but I just want to put that out there that, pre-symptomatic or early phases, they would maybe showcase as asymptomatic, but they're really pre-symptomatic. Therefore, they are contagious. But what the World Health Organization has communicated is in contact tracing and identifying these folks who have tested positive but showing absolutely no signs of symptoms, that they cannot identify anybody who might have come into contact with them that's had transmission. That's what that means. So I want to dig further into that as we get more information. Now, the other thing too, it did communicate that the best way of dealing with mild levels of COVID symptoms and pre-symptomatic cases, the early phases of the virus, is to quarantine and to contact trace. So they really dig into the contact tracing as being a part of that impact. Now, the big study, this is a peer review. It's accelerated, but peer reviewed. So this is on point. This is a study in the journal Nature, and it talks about the effect of basically our social distancing, the quarantines, the staying at home orders, federal and state and local. And it goes into a whole bunch of information. Essentially, it analyzes the positive impact of the locking down. And they look at, China, South Korea, Italy, Iran, France, and the US. So it's not just the US. And they basically identify that across 6 countries, interventions either prevented or delayed at least 62 million confirmed cases. And that corresponds to averting 530 million total infections. So they dig, there's just a ton of research. They talk about the modeling. They go into a whole bunch of charting. I won't bore you with that stuff, but they dig into the different policies based on each country. Like they've got China, South Korea, Italy, Iran, France, and the US. So we'll let this get kind of zoomed in. So you see some different changes and things like that. But the red is if red is basically what would happen, or where these levels would have been if they had done nothing. And so you see this substantially. This is South Korea. South Korea was really tight immediately, and they had a huge dip, and they stayed low. And then Iran or Italy, they had a little tough time, and now they've dipped. But that would have gotten progressively worse. Iran, France, and then the US. So if you notice, the US has not dipped as much as we should have. And there are some blips on this screen. So, and this goes the blips early on, this is March 16th. And I know these dates. March 13th was when we called off the wedding and we had the national emergency. So 3 days later, there's a blip. So there was a kind of increase right after they put in the orders. So I think that's very telling, for a lot of people who do have quarantine fatigue. This particular study digs into how effective it has been. And, they dig into the deaths. So this is the amount of cases are the dark line. The deaths are these little dotted lines on the bottom. And then they have different lines like school closures and all these other kind of things that they have put in place. So I think this is important to know. So if anybody, kind of has any doubt that it's highly effective, and if we have a second wave, we know how highly effective it is. And if we don't have these same measures with the second wave, we could possibly see a great increase. Okay. So those are big pieces. For any of you football fans, let me break out this one. I think it's over here. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. So the NFL has put out a memo kind of highlighting what it's going to look like for the NFL to return to normal. So some things that are going to happen, they're going to be separating and quarantine players, coaches, and trainers and team personnel. They're going to have 3 tiers. They're going to have different limitations to facilities. They're going to have different personnel tiered entrances and different times when these people are going to be entering things. They also are going to look at reconfiguring the locker rooms. The players, club employees will undergo daily screening and testing prior to entering the facility. And there will be a questionnaire as to whether they've had different symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea in the previous 24 hours. There will be virtual meetings when it's necessary. And then they're going to require anybody who attends any in-person meetings, there's going to be face mask wearing. And they're going to limit groups of 20. So if there's offensive line, if there's more than 20, which there usually is, they're going to divide them and probably have 2 different meetings or have some go virtual. Workout groups are going to be 15 or less. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, these are the questions that are raised. Will preseason be delayed or shortened to kind of collectively give everybody an equal chance who might be recovering or whatnot to practice and work out? What happens when a player or a coach tests positive and potentially it's spread in the locker room? What happens then? What testing protocols will the league put in place on game days? We don't know that. What if a player tests positive before kickoff, but after arriving at a stadium? I mean, there's like all of these different things. What if there's a bus driver, a hotel worker, a fan, or friend who's tested positive? What do we do with that player? And these are all things that are highly likely in this. What if the player who tests positive does so before a road game? How does he get home? And then what about the field? Is the turf, these indoor turfs, it's not grass. Does that have how are they sanitizing it? So those are a lot of questions for all you football fans. These same questions also we should be asking at the collegiate level. I haven't seen anything of this nature. I know this is a big difference. We have sports that are in the collegiate level, and now we have professional. Professional is treated clearly much differently in terms of that. Okay, this is yes, thanks, Christine. Please, everybody, hit the like button. I appreciate that. So I want to talk to you about an herb, and there are some of you who are watching that should not take this herb, and I'll dig into why. But for the most part, average 70-75% of us should be taking this specific herb. It's called Astragalus. If you guys can see it. Astragalus is a powerful adaptogen. It is an immune boosting herb, and it's also anti-aging in its properties. Astragalus, so I've studied it in my herbal courses and even, after my doctorate extensively. I've used it myself. It was one of the first herbs when I got sick in my early 20s. That was part of my staple. It was Astragalus and ligustrum. Astragalus itself helps the body deal with physical related stress, physiological related stress, and then internal, like chemical, the endocrine imbalances. It is very potent in terms of its ability to chemically change the nature of the body to adapt to different stimuli. So for instance, if you are dealing with a virus infection and you're dealing with a kind of revved up engine, heart rate or whatnot, and you have joint pain, those 3 things are stimuli and they can cause stress. So it puts stress on the fight or flight system, our adrenal glands. Astragalus is a very, very powerful adaptogen, and it is potent in terms of its ability to also affect the cells of the body. So it's really great if you've had any cellular damage, particularly like with cancer, radiation, chemotherapy. It It also, I want to talk to you about the plant. There's 300 varieties of Astragalus. It grows all over the world, very potent. So it is meant to be utilized by humans. Animals eat it as well. But it is definitely something that I think you should definitely consider adding this into your regimen. The first thing it does is it helps the heart. It helps protect the heart in that a lot of the heart impact is going to be specifically protective. So if somebody has had a stroke or a heart attack or even like heart arrhythmias or some valve dysfunction, it's very valuable. And actually research shows that astragalus and I've had several of you comment and ask about strokes. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight this. Research shows that it can, so following a stroke, it can help strengthen the artery walls and preserve nerve functionality where blood returns to certain areas of the brain. That's really big because we see the long-term effect. It's the lack of blood flow, and we see that area of the brain become dysfunctional. It also can regulate the function of the heart. So chronic heart failure or any type of congestive heart failure, it's very good at limiting those episodes. So that's really big. Now, in my case here in Georgia, I use this quite a bit in the spring, late summer, early fall. It can help with allergies. So research has highlighted that it can minimize the overwhelming impact of these allergies on the body. And it has this chemical pathway blocking capacity. So it can prevent the body in its release of histamines. So when we talk about COVID and the cytokine storm and the histamine response and the inflammatory response, there's an underlying histamine factor. Astragalus will block histamine. So if you, like right now, I haven't taken my astragalus because I wanted to make sure I brought it down with me. I keep this upstairs. It's the first thing I take and usually the last thing I take in the day. It can help affect runny nose, itchy eyes, irritation, huge benefit. So any type of redness. Now let's talk about histamine response on the skin. It's not just an allergic response in the sinuses, but if you're dealing with like hives or itch, redness of the skin, very powerful. There's research that highlights it has some anti-cancer properties. There is a particular type of compound in the astragalus called saponins. And saponins, they actually have the ability to minimize the proliferation of certain cancer cells. So, for instance, it's been studied in GI-related cancer, so gastric cancer cells. It prevents them from getting oxygen. Pretty powerful. Melissa Monica says, it is better than rhodiola. I take that for stress. Yes, it is overwhelmingly comprehensive in its power, but it has a deep potential for helping individuals really in the preventative world and boosting their immune system. In early stages of the cancer development, we see it to be impactful for colon cancer, breast cancer, and any type of urological cancer, so prostate cancer. So a lot of my men, I'll put them on astragalus. The other thing too is it minimizes the side effects of chemotherapy. So very beneficial. The Chinese study this. China and Australia have done a lot of research on astragalus when it relates to like the nausea, vomiting, and it specifically with those colorectal cancers. So this is very potent. Now, how it's very similar to rhodiola as an adaptogen, it can reduce high anxiety and it can reduce stress, and it can relax the body. It creates a sense of peace and calm. It's a nerve tonic, and can also help to rebalance hormone levels, which tend to be also a factor. If we are having for us ladies, if we have low progesterone and high estrogen, we'll have anxiety. We can have panic attacks. We can have kind of angsty feeling. It can help minimize the mood swings, and it can help release any of that kind of nervous related tension and angst. Now, the other thing too is if you suffer from any type of insomnia or sleepless nights or have irregular sleep, Astragalus can very, very much be beneficial. It can help balance that circadian rhythm, partially because it's dealing with the stress, but taking it will help you sleep better, which is fantastic. Now, anti-aging, this is one of these things, if it's, it's obviously more superficial for a lot of us, but internal, we want to make sure our cells are supportive. It helps to regrow tissue. So it's great for, burns or even, acne scars. It minimizes free radical damage. It'll prevent, it's a high antioxidant. So it'll prevent the damage within our vascular walls. So it's very good for anybody that has diabetes or is dealing with any type of like high blood pressure, kidney related challenges. But the other thing too is it's really good for skin. It can remove blemishes. It can reduce wrinkles. And then the other thing that it can do is it can get rid of some of those age spots. So a lot of people have like liver spots or kind of darkening. It can reduce that. So I do know that a lot of people will take a little bit of this, mix it with like a little witch hazel and put on the actual age spots. So it does lighten them up, but most of the time we're going to be taking this internal, and I'll show you what this looks like. And by the way, I've got links down below to two of these. One is the liquid version. I don't know why I've never taken the plastic off, but this is, it's not as herbally as like the dark herbals, but wow, it's a zinger. You want to mix this with something, like usually I'll mix it up with like, I have coconut water before I go to bed. I'll mix it up and then brush my teeth and get rid of it's got a potency. Now this is what, these are some of my things that has the most benefit. It has an ability to protect your immune system. So if you have a weakened immune system from Epstein-Barr virus, or you just have chronic infections, maybe your gut imbalances or overwhelming candida or yeast infections, or you just find your immune system is just not able to handle pathogenic exposure, this is one of these supplements that will strengthen your immune system. It triggers the immune system to be turned on and it gets it moving. So for a lot of folks that are dealing with major immune invaders and the body's just not turned on or signaling, and there's a lot at play. Sometimes the thyroid's inability to balance the body temperature and trigger, a mild kind of temperature, 90, high 98, 99, low 99s. That would be something that would be traditionally, it would coincide with the body's immune response, but sometimes we don't always have that. But it's really good for cold and general based infections. Now, one of the things that's a caveat with Astragalus, and I have to say this is one of these ones that if you suffer from any type of autoimmune disorder, particularly lupus, HIV, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, and even Sjogren's disease, you're going to find Astragalus can actually sometimes cause a flare. It can sometimes heighten your symptoms. It will boost the activity and engagement of your immune system. So I would not add that. Hashimoto's is one of these ones that it depends on the state of Hashimoto's. When Hashimoto's is food-based and we resolve it with dietary changes and just some general thyroid support, Astragalus is okay. But if we have full-blown and you're in the 500s or 1,000 range with your antibodies, you don't want to take that. So that is where my word of caution plays out. But for instance, I have a lot of folks who have Lyme disease. Astragalus is awesome for Lyme. I mean, it is a scavenger. It will motivate your lymphatic system to eradicate those spirochetes and the bacteria, and it is very, very potent. So very, very powerful. I think one of the things where Astragalus is least reported and probably utilized in the least way, it's not as prevalent in my world, in the naturopathic world, is the heart challenges. So any of us who have any history, family history, and I mean, I'm very bold and honest with all of you, that is the one thing that I actively engage in. I have a cardiologist I see. I am very strict about making sure my heart health is on point, because my family, the one side of my family where we know our health history, that is what takes particularly the women down. And so that is not, I'm going to be rewriting history. And because of that, the Astragalus has to be a part of the mix. Where there's heart attack, mitral valve imbalance, mitral valve dysfunction. We see arrhythmias, stroke risk, all of those factors. Take yesterday's video where we talked about K2, which, by the way, if you didn't watch that, please do. Take that video plus this video, and you've got K2 and Astragalus, very potent immune regulators, but also very potent in terms of the immune, decreasing the immune, the extent of the virus. So, and I say that this is not clinically founded specific to this virus, so I need to have that caveat because I'm not making a claim. But if you take K2, we know K2 has a blocking capacity. It produces a protein that protects the lungs and the other tissue that are greatly exacerbated by COVID and the inflammatory response. You couple that up with Astragalus, which has very heart protective, particularly strokes. And I mean, strokes are from blood clots, and also reparative, restorative heart protection. You've got a very powerful, potent resource for you. Let's see, Morris and Monica, the doctors cannot find definite autoimmunity, but I have autoimmune conditions. Will Astragalus be okay with that? I would wager that, if there's an anticipation of autoimmune conditions and you haven't been checked for Lyme, because sometimes Lyme can be registering in the body experiences as autoimmunity, and it's not. I would do a Lyme test first. That would be my recommendation before you test it. Do you work with women in hormone balance? Yes, all the time. I ordered the rescue spray. Isn't that good for stress? So all of it is. I have layers. One of the things, and I have my spray. I love my spray. This one I'm almost out of. I have one upstairs too. The spray is good for the emotional side. So the spray will deal with those emotions, the thoughts that we kind of have in our head. Bach flower sprays. If you're not familiar with this, I could do a whole series of videos on this. I love that. I've been trained. I'm a Bach flower therapist. There's the emotional side, and then there's the deeper. So Astragalus is going to be an herb that motivates and bolsters the body and protects the heart. It minimizes the histamine reaction. The Bach won't do that. The Bach will calm that emotional side. And we have an emotional body, we have our spiritual body, we have our actual physical body. All three work in conjunction. So we need to deal with all of them all together collectively to get our body balanced. Okay, so let's see. And thank you, Letitia. She's reminding everybody, continue thumbing up under the video, everyone. Big thumbs up if you like this. Shelby Williams says type 1 diabetes ? So it will be beneficial for folks that have any, type 1 and 2 are varied based on the source and the function of the pancreas. But ultimately, the net effect, you're still going to have vascular imbalances or vascular grief. So it does place a burden on the body. Yes, Astragalus would be great for type 1 or 2 diabetes for sure. Okay. Let's see. I'm hearing some crying upstairs. I wonder what's going on. Oh, he's playing with. Okay, sorry. Mommy camp kicks off as soon as we get done. So Brian's up there with him until I finish. Let's see. I need that. I started to break out acne, I think hormonal menopause. Yes. And so hormonal menopause is going to be from here. So if you kind of draw a line to your ear and then down. So anything around the chin, this is all hormones. So we have quadrants of the face. This will be hormones. If it's up here, this is liver. So the liver body is up here. And then we have stomach and intestines up in the cheek area. So we can actually facial map your face and identify like what type of imbalances are happening based on where you're experiencing acne or breakouts or whatnot. Okay. So thank you. My antibodies were at 175. It's interesting. A lot of folks have inflammatory related diseases, but they have not identified what the autoimmunity specifically is. In those cases, there's sometimes a need to look deeper. And I see a very small subset, but a very overwhelming subset of patients that have something called mast cell disease. So for like basketball fan and even Monica Morrison, have your doctors run, ask them about mast cell disease. Sometimes they're specialists. Like we actually, here in Atlanta, there's 2 that are really, really good. I used to have patients in Florida that come up to Atlanta. So at Emory, there's one particular powerhouse. He's amazing. And he is very good about testing. I have one friend up here who has it. And it is something that gets lumped into autoimmunity, but it's not. It's a deeper related challenge. But the histamine, like it is an overwhelming amount of histamines that build up. And folks they can't eat a whole lot of food every day. It's like a different food allergy. They just are inflamed. They're holding a lot of fluid. I mean, lymphatically, they're bogged down. So I work with them within the lymphatics to get stuff moving. And like they'll hold a lot of fluid up here in the back of the neck, a lot of sinus issues. Sometimes we'll get interstitial, we'll get hypertension from within the brain. So it's one of these, it's like an overwhelming amount of pressure from the fluid and the lymphatic buildup. And so I do a lot of lymph draining. We have lymphatics in our brain, in our head as well. So that would be something I would say, put that out there with some of those. Mast cell. Okay, so I wasted a ton of money. Okay, so basketball fan. Yeah, so a lot of really intense allergies can be a factor with mast cell. Hey, Christy Fit Roberts, any general advice for women perimenopause? Not on this one. This is not a general question Q&A, but I have a ton of video, Christy, on perimenopause. The thing that I'd recommend is Ephisoy. That's on Amazon if you want to grab one of those. That has 3 supplements that are great for that. But I have a whole female hormone playlist of probably 30 videos. So mast cell, it is something that probably your rheumatologist, you'd want to talk with them. If you've done all these, you're usually seeing a specialist and ask them if they specialize in mast cell or can refer out. A lot of times it's a process. You actually send everything in. Sometimes there's more intense labs that are needed. But I had one patient, in Florida. Every time she'd have an episode, she'd go to the ER and didn't have insurance. So she was like overwhelmed with all of her bills, but she'd go in and they'd have her in the ER and she could just literally, they wouldn't believe her. They thought she was, coming in and wanting medication. Like she want pain relieving medication, things to like her headache would be so like the pressure was so intense. She'd have these like intense migraines, but they weren't migraines. It was this other condition. She would literally press like right here and she could send her heart. She learned through this process, she could press right here and would send her body into tachycardia. And then, it's red alert, all this stuff's happening. And then they come in and she'd go, look, and then it'd go back to normal. And that was her tipping point. Let's see. Dr. Melissa says thyroid globulin antibodies, what I should be testing for. TPO-AB, thyroid paradoxase antibodies would be what you'd want to test. So big T, P, O, and then little AB antibodies. You want to test that. Let's see. Shelby Williams, should I replace my oil of oregano and colloidal silver with astragalus root? No, add to it. I love astragalus, I love oil of oregano, and I love colloidal silver. All have different kind of functionalities, all beneficial. Yeah, so I'd definitely call up the rheumatologist. What I would do, even before you go in, call up and just say, who do you refer out for mast cell cases or mast cell disease? And the other word that you might want to look at is POTS, P-O-T-S. It's a long name, but P-O-T-S, check that out. Yeah, so mast cell disease is not going to be most of the time on the radar. You just have to think like these doctors go to the easiest points. The more in-depth work, that generally you level out, you go even deeper into the specialization. So that would be something I'd recommend. Okay, POTS and mast cell, yes, POTS and mast cell disease. Okay, so that's my news, friends. Astragalus, I love it. I can't say enough. Personally, I've had a lot of experience with this herb. It helped me recover from Epstein-Barr big time. I mean, I was down in terms of cellular immunity. I had what was supposed to be a year and a half of an illness. And within 6 months of really intense therapy, I did a lot of work. I highlight, I got kicked off into wanting to do this type of work by working with a specialist in my town where I grew up in. So it is very beneficial for the deep cellular immune support. It's also quite overwhelmingly beneficial for any of us who are dealing with stress. And stress is one of these things we cannot underestimate its power at creating imbalance. So for any of you asking questions about autoimmunity, underlying cause, one of them is stress. It causes inflammation. Cortisol then kicks off some of the gut imbalances. Gut imbalances lead to autoimmunity. Hormones, so perimenopausal questions, like we had, let's see, our friend Christy Fit Roberts. So, the hormonal imbalances are caused by stress. Cortisol imbalances, that will eat up excess progesterone we need to balance our hormones. So if we can use adaptogens like rhodiola and holy basil, which by the way, I totally missed my window to pick up my holy basil, but I ordered over the weekend holy basil plants from our local little CSA farm. And I'm going to be growing 2 holy basils. I'm going to be brewing my own holy basil tea. I'm so excited. So it is possible. I don't know if it flowers, but I'm going to try and replicate it and grow it. So who knows, you might find seeds online in like a year. But definitely something is very critical for just promoting peace and calm in the body. And astragalus can be very good for any of you who are going through the day and then all of a sudden at night you're tired, but you're wired. That's an adrenal thing, but that astragalus impact will help you sleep. It'll calm that mind, running mind process. And I know a lot of you know what I'm talking about. But stress can trigger, and we cannot also underestimate the stress. All of this, the pandemic is playing in our lives. Oh, basketball fan, thank you. And I hope you do get some direction there with mast cell and POTS, because I have a feeling that will at least eliminate some questions for you. So I appreciate your live chat. 22 euros. So thank you. Should you take astragalus and rhodiola? Yes, I love them both. I love them both for a lot of different reasons. Rhodiola is one of those things that you want to take earlier in the day. So don't take it any later than 2 p.m., but it'll invigorate your system. Rhodiola is one of these that physically and mentally, it'll manage that stress. Where astragalus is going to manage and cause calm. So this is where we have layers of herbs, and herbs have different impact on the body. So rhodiola would help your body deal with mental and physical stamina. And so if you're physically drained, you're mentally drained, rhodiola is definitely one of my go-tos. Rhodiola and the holy basil, those are in that category. Then astragalus, that adaptogen specifically will calm the central nervous system. It creates peace and relaxes the body, and also just brings down that stress state. So you have rhodiola working at the mental and physical fatigue to combat the role that also exacerbates the stress. So there's different layers of kind of herbal functionality. And that's one of the things, if you guys have ever seen any type of Chinese doctor or, acupuncturist that specializes in Chinese medicine, and they're two separate. So you can have a doctor of Chinese medicine that employs acupuncture, and then you just have acupuncturists. So the two are not the same. the doctors of Chinese medicine, you will get herbs. There'll be like 15 different herbs in the capsule, and they're all their Chinese names, but a lot of them are going to be, rhodiola. You're going to have different ginsengs. You're going to have gotu kola. You're going to have some of the very prevalent, common herbs that we see in Chinese medicine. Astragalus is one of them. I mentioned ligustrum is another one that's often powerful. Nancy. Okay. Nancy's husband is just like Brian. My husband is type 2 diabetic and he is ITP. Would it be a good idea for him to take this? I need to look into that. So let me identify, because ITP is an autoimmunity, and we are very cautious with, and he has this weird situation with ITP. Actually, tomorrow he goes in to get his labs drawn so we can see where his numbers are, because he has to go back into the office on Monday. I don't know why. His company's still stuck in the 1980s. So can I take rhodiola with Hashimoto's? Yes. Rhodiola is very good for that. When do you drink the stress suppressed tea? So Holly, I drink it all the time. So I drink it particularly in the morning, and I stop taking it around lunchtime, and then I switch. So I'll post on Instagram, though I ran out. I miscalculated how many I had. So I ran out and I needed something really fast. So I did a quick Amazon order, and I'll share with you the other one that I got. And usually in the evening, I switch over to like my kava tea, or my kava. I do liquid herbal kava. I love kava. Kava works for me. And one of the things you'll find, different herbs work well for you, where you just feel like, wow, this really works well. And then others are like, okay, just experiment and see how you feel with them. Yeah, you can drink Tulsi all day. Rhodiola is not one that I would drink throughout, any time past early afternoon. So yay, thank you guys for all the likes. I am grateful. So find each other on Facebook or Instagram. Yes. Okay. So I would love for you all to join me tomorrow. Tomorrow, I don't know our topic yet. Kind of go with the kind of what I'm feeling, but I want to make sure that I'm covering as much information for you all. So I'm going to try and post a poll. Most of the time my phone is completely off when I'm with Gabriel. I just don't want to be that mom that's got her phone on all the time. So mushroom coffee is good. So yes. So thank you all for tuning in. Let's come back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. And with the Astragalus, usually I take about a dropper. And it's his usual serving size. I think it's like 140 milligrams per 0.7 milliliters. But if I'm sick, I take it more frequently. Or at least I feel that coming on. So anyway, thanks you guys for tuning in. I appreciate the live super chats, basketball fan. I'm grateful, and cupcake paper. Thank you so much. You two ladies are fabulous. And for all of you tuning in and asking excellent questions, I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Thanks, YouTube. I will see you guys later. Have a great day. And thanks, Pat, for moderating. I really am grateful.